With full attendance, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Exactly at 8 o'clock. Fantastic. First order of business is to review the minutes from April 18th. I thought they were perfect. I had no problem with them.
Yeah, I read them over. They look good to me.
Let's see. We have a citizen guest. Good morning, John York. Like with most meetings, this is being broadcast live and also recorded by Bourne TV. Wendy Howland is our clerk secretary, and after we approve minutes for this meeting, they'll be sent to the town clerk, and they'll be publicly available. If you have any comments on individual subjects, the general outline, the general agenda is attached to our meeting notice on the town calendar. We're working off one that's slightly more detailed, just for working. We could that'll be made available. You'll be able to see that in the minutes when the whole thing is done. And if you have any comments on individual parts of the agenda as I close them out, I'll entertain any comments, questions, etc., that you might have. Okay, moving forward with the review of the minutes from April 18th. Any comments, changes that haven't been sent to Wendy already?
Nope. Looks good to me.
Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I approve. I motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Yeah, I've seconded.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, obviously nobody is opposed.
And I abstain.
And Tony missed that meeting, so he abstained. Okay, if you'd note that in the minutes, Wendy. The next is review of any public correspondence. I haven't received notice of any. Anne Marie, have you seen any?
Yes. So we have two correspondences. One, I believe, Bob, you forwarded to the entire committee, where the town administrator answered questions relative to the April 16th meeting, I believe, and questions that came out of this meeting. Did everybody take a look at the email? I can go over, if you'd like, the responses.
I'd like to propose that we cover that under 4A.
Okay. And the second correspondence came also from Town Hall. Town Hall received an invitation for a digital equity workshop that the Cape Cod Commission and the MBI are putting together to invite implementation stakeholders and also the select board member to strategize on effective implementation for digital equity plans. So they thought that a regional meeting to get all the stakeholders in one room and kind of do some strategy on implementation. The reason that this is happening is because, again, Bourne's ahead of the curve with their digital equity plan. We'll see that final draft on the May 14th meeting. I believe the Cape Cod Commission will be presenting that draft to us. Originally, we thought later in in May, but I believe May 14th is the Cape Cod Commission's presentation of the final digital equity plan. And then, so May 16th is the strategy planning. So like I said, I'll be in attendance. Marlene will be in attendance. I believe there'll be representation from the library, and there'll be representation from the Council on Aging. And obviously, communities across the Cape, municipalities across the Cape will be in one room. So that's happening. So that was the only other correspondence.
Anne Marie, is there any chance we can get a copy of that final draft before that meeting?
If I get it, I'll certainly forward along. If it's going to be in, like I said, if it's on that agenda, then it'll be part of the public notification. Attach the agenda for that meeting. If I get it earlier, and we usually get our information, our packet on the Friday before. So if I get it before that, absolutely, I will forward it and pass it along. So yeah, so they've incorporated, obviously. I don't know the answer to that, but the final draft will have incorporated the recommendations that this committee has made when they reviewed the plan.
Is there any chance that a member of our committee could be at any one of these meetings?
You can be at the select board meeting, yes.
Right. No, the strategy planning meeting that you talked
Well,
about with the COA.
It's for implementation strategies, and that, this committee is in charge with implementation. So
But
it's
isn't it
those
open to
people
the
who-
public?
no, it's not. It's those people who will be implement. So, obviously the select board has to review the plan, has to adopt the plan, and then has to prioritize the goals for the plan, and then give the directive to the town administrator for implementation. So, this committee isn't charged with implementation, and you wouldn't be implementing the plan.
But
So
we
it's
we would have an interest in seeing what plans are being considered and or approved, because that would be part of our advice.
well, that's
Sorry.
where, the select board will be giving that directive, not this committee.
Of course, but they theoretically.
And I will absolutely report back.
They're
to this
they're
committee.
theoretically interested in our input.
I was more concerned with just the technical aspects of like what's being proposed, because I thought that somebody with some technical knowledge should just be there, just because if they're talking about, for instance, widening out the network at the library, there are numerous ways that this can be done. And the Council on Aging, I'm not sure exactly what's being proposed, but
Well, it's not specific to what Bourne's doing. It's looking regionally what the possibilities of implementation, right? And strategies. That's what this is looking at, and getting the stakeholders in the room who are the decision makers for this digital equity plan are in the room. So that's not the charge of this committee.
Anne Marie, is this a public meeting?
It is not a public meeting. It is not a public meeting.
Interesting.
It doesn't have to be a public meeting.
Hmm.
So I will report back. I will report back on that. I will absolutely.
I would
And
just like
Marlene
to-
will be in the room as well. So, and there could be other staff. Like I said, I'm not sure. I know Marlene and I will be present. I'm not sure if she did mention that the library may have someone go in the Council on Aging. That's all I know. So, and they have an agenda. This isn't our agenda. It's the Cape Cod Commission's agenda, and in conjunction with MBI.
will they be
Interesting.
okay? Will they be? I guess the deadline is the end of the month. Is that correct?
For what?
I thought we said something about 5/31 was a deadline for.
No,
No.
we'll talk about that when we get to 4A, John.
Oh,
The
okay.
answer-
Yeah,
The
yeah.
short answer is no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I would just like to file a comment from me as chair that I think our committee and any other committees that are putting together digital equity plans for the other towns beyond town administration ought to be present, at least as observers. So if you would like to file that with Tupper, a request from us to be present.
But this committee is not charged with the digital equity plan. That's not our charge.
Our charge
That's
is
not
to,
your charge.
our charge is to advise the select board, and without hearing.
Correct,
what-
correct. But this is beyond, like you've advised the select board on the digital equity plan, the recommendations. You've also made recommendations about the goals. You've also made recommendations to MBI in reviewing, and you also made recommendations specific to the digital equity plan to the Cape Cod Commission. So that's valuable information, and that, that's all in the hands of the commission and MBI.
Okay, I'd just like to make a comment, and I'm going to make this very publicly, that I think this committee is being pigeonholed in terms of very narrow scopes of what we're allowed to advise the select board on. And, I think our effectiveness is being compromised. You don't have to comment back on that, just you might pass that along to the select board and anybody else who would listen. Anybody else on the committee who objects to my saying that, cheer in right now. I'm not going to go for a vote on that, but I do want to make that as a very public comment.
On
Okay.
on the hypothetical that perhaps, just perhaps, something that we felt was very important from a technical standpoint, as John and Jed were saying, and it either is glossed over or ignored or minimized inappropriately. I think it would be important for people who know about these things, like us, to be independent observers to note that.
Okay, well, I think we've made our point on that. I want to move along on the agenda. First of all, right now we finished the review of public correspondence. Are there any comments from the public who are present? John York, and welcome David Eisenberg again. Anybody who has comments on that? I don't see any. Okay, moving on. The next item on the agenda is let's see, we're going to talk about again the digital equity plan proposal under item 4A. And the first item, of course, is just to go over the email, the response that we did get back through the town administrator from MBI. Would anybody, Anne Marie, would you like to briefly summarize that for the two members of the public who are present? I didn't circulate that widely.
Are you talking about A2?
No.
No.
A1.
I'm talking about the this was under public correspondence, the response that Marlene got back from MBI regarding all of the scheduling for.
Sorry. Yes. So we are not bound by the May 31st deadline, right? Again, we're moving fast on this digital equity planning. So by June 21st, we have to commit to the reservation. By June 30th, we have to complete the digital equity plan. We've already checked that box. After the select board is presented with the final draft, after select boards adopt the plan, then July 31st, we have to develop a proposal that falls within the eligible uses of funding and submit a complete application via Mass Tech's online form. October 10th, we enter into a formal funding agreement. And then October 31st of 2020, October 10th of 2025, October 31st of 2026, we have to complete all the improved implementation activities and expand all funds. So it's actually a really long timeline compared to what we're used to, because we're looking at from June 21st to October of 2026. Our particular latest deadline dates, which will easily meet. I don't see any issues with meeting this particular timeline with respects to the 70 or possibly higher or possibly lower funding through this this grant opportunity.
Where'd my video go? Just one question that Brian brought up. He sent that to all. The question is, does commitment to the 70,000, does that what effect does that have on the additional 30,000 that can come along subsequent to that?
You're on mute, Anne Marie.
Thank you, Jed. So the reserve is, they're looking at what communities and where they're at. So it's just a reserve. I don't think there's an issue with once the application is in and they say, oh, Bourne needs a little more money to accomplish what they've put in this proposal, we'll give them 100,000. 70 is not
basically,
a definitive number.
We can write a proposal assuming 100,000 to try to push it to that point, and then they have some arbitrary leeway, I guess, to decide between 70 and 100.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
So the plan that the select board needs to approve should include that, right?
No, the plan, the select board will review the digital equity plan that the Cape Cod Commission will be presenting May 14th. They will take it under review. That's the plan that we are adopting or will vote to adopt. Once that is in place, the next task of the select board is to then prioritize what implementation goals we want to direct the town administrator to achieve. Okay, so it could be any one of the many goals that the Cape Cod Commission has put in the plan. So we have to prioritize that. Once that happens and we give the directive to the town administrator, she then can look at navigate that application process based on what the select board has directed her with respects to the goals. This is what we want to accomplish this year. This is what we want to accomplish next year. I mean, it's not going to be all in any given year. It's going to have to be over a course of time. So, but, come 2025, we want to extend the Wi-Fi at municipalities and beaches, et cetera. Or, those are things that the select board would decide on priorities with the recommendations from the CTAC. And then that'll be the directive of the town administrator. And then obviously the town administrator will then, okay, now I know what I need to put in this application in order to achieve that goal.
Okay,
So-
that was my question, do we get a second look at it to help set those priorities?
No,
Well,
again, the charge of this committee is not to write the grant. If I did speak
No,
with
I
Liz and I
didn't
did
say
speak
that.
with Marlene, and they are absolutely well aware of the members of this committee as a resource when that process happens. And if they want to reach out, they can absolutely reach out.
So, by the way, we already provided our priorities to the town administrator and the select board.
Mm.
The other
Right.
thing I'll point out is that I believe in the letter that I read that Marlene passed, each of the items in the proposal has to be directly tied to the recommendations in the back of the plan.
Yeah,
Looks like Brian has his hand up.
go ahead, Brian.
I'm just seeking maybe a little clarity, saying we aren't supposed to be writing digital equity grants. We wrote the grant for the original the commission of the study to begin with. So what's changed?
So the charge of this committee isn't to write grants. That's probably the thing that's changed, Brian. The charge of the committee is to advise the select board. But you're saying actually writing the grant. Is that what you're saying, Brian?
Yeah, we wrote
Asking?
this grant to bring in the Cape Cod Commission. in the first place. So why is this all of a sudden verboten?
But that's not the charge of the committee. The charge of the committee isn't grant writing or implementation. So that's the difference. That's the difference.
Seems like an oversight that might need to be corrected because we've been writing a lot of grants.
Not as this committee? Not as this committee. Right? What grants have we written for this committee? What grants has this committee written, the CTAC committee?
Bob?
They haven't.
Well, yeah, I think the point that's being made here is that people on the committee wrote the grants, but they weren't necessarily part of the committee activities. That's the distinction. And on the other side of it, there's nothing that says that the town administrator can't ask for help if they want and have us come in and
Correct.
write them. I mean, that's certainly feasible,
Well,
but it wouldn't be an official activity of the committee.
it can't be, because that would violate the charter. Right? If the town, if we as the select board direct the town administrator to do something, she has to, within her charter and within her job responsibilities, assign someone, whether it's her personally or whether she assigns someone to do the task. It has to be someone within town hall. We can't, it doesn't mean that anyone from town hall would reach out and have have this committee as a resource.
Really?
But the task has to be done by someone in town hall.
Now, again, as is obvious, the town administrator runs a tight ship. Months ago, I did inquire when I met the assistant administrator in the hallway in town hall. I inquired about when the first draft of the digital equity plan was going to come back, and I suggested I deal with the Cape Cod Commission for other matters. I could call the Cape Cod Commission office, and I was told very explicitly, no, that is not your job. That's the job of the town administration. Do not contact the Cape Cod Commission on this. Period.
And that's the truth, because we had a contract with them.
Right. Okay, so I follow that chain of command, at least with regard to that contract. Okay.
I just wanted to point out one very small thing, because we're talking about a very long timeline here between actually applying for the grants and implementation of the grant. And it is possible that during that timeline, the internet accessibility landscape will change. I mean, I was driving down County Road yesterday, and as soon as I hit Monument Beach, there were Verizon trucks out there. So I don't know, it's a mystery as to what their long-term plans are, and also those of other possible suppliers. So it's possible that by the time this grant is actually implemented, there will be more choices. So I would just advise whoever is writing the grant to make it broad enough so that we're not locked into any specific internet provider.
So there's no internet providers required for the digital equity plan recommendations.
Okay, because I know she was talking about implementing, and okay, fine, as long as it's not.
The only thing that internet related in the recommendations was extending the Wi-Fi access at the public buildings, and that's Open Cape.
Okay.
Looks like John has his hand up.
Sorry, I've got a reflection on my screen.
Yes, thank you. I'm a little bit reluctant to weigh in here because it's your business. But as a resident of the town who's used to watching advisory committees and who has been a member of advisory committees, it's my understanding, reading your charter as it's written, that it would be your responsibility to provide recommendations for grants. That would constitute advising the selectmen on the task which you were requested to advise them on. And I'm a little bit confused by the conversation back and forth that seems to imply that you should not play any role in the grant writing. And I think your charter clearly says your role is to provide recommendations. You can recommend that the town seek out a certain grant source, and you could even recommend language to be within that grant proposal. And as a citizen of the town, I'm a little bit concerned that your committee would take a different view of that without checking with the selectmen who wrote the select board as a select board who wrote your charter.
I believe we do take that view, that that is part of our job.
And
Okay,
that's, and they have been doing that. You have made lots of recommendations. I'm just saying there is a process. And if the select board makes the decision about what grants the town should go after, then the town administrator gets that directive. And the town administrator then becomes the writer of the grant or assign someone the writer of the grant. It doesn't dismiss the fact that that they can reach out to the committee and this committee provide resources for that process. But that hasn't happened yet because there hasn't been a directive yet from the select board with respects to grant opportunities for this digital equity process. We have to adopt the digital equity plan first. We haven't seen that final plan. We haven't had the opportunity to adopt it yet. And then we haven't had the opportunity to prioritize what in that plan we can start to implement. That will dictate the types of grants that this committee will recommend to go after. That's the process. They have not been denied opportunity to advise the select board on any of this. They have, and they've done so with due diligence and with an abundance of information. The select board, unfortunately, hasn't had an opportunity to sit together as a select board and to look at everything that this committee has compiled and advised us on. That will be done in June. When we look at that quarter report and any additional information Bob and this committee wants to add to that report, that will happen in June. We haven't had a chance to do that, but this committee has advised the select board on an abundance of information. They've been very busy, which is a good thing. So that opportunity, John, it's coming. It's just, has, a lot of things that we have to put in place, a lot of things that we have to address in our agendas and our meetings. But it is coming, and we will do diligence with what this committee has advised the select board on and move from there. And we will review the charge as well. Come year end, which is June.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, John. And perhaps clarification of our duties on this might be one item for discussion, and this committee may want to make recommendations because all of our terms expire on June 30th. So we might want to modify the request that the select board or recommend the select board modify the charge to clarify what you're talking about. Okay, with that, I'm going to move forward, and we're now talking about other funding opportunities. And first item I'd like to talk about is the bead challenge, and I'm going to turn that over to Brian to just give us an update on where we are with regard to the bead challenge, and I'm going to be gritting my teeth in the meantime because I've sat in on two information or non-information sessions from MBI regarding this. Brian, go ahead.
So MBI in their usual way has not released anything for the challenge. So we don't know as far as resources we're going to have. They haven't finalized the dates. It's going to be another one of these fire drills because we are going to be running around like a chicken with our heads cut off by the time we have the information needed to assist here. In order to even try to get a peek of what's going on, I've utilized the Freedom of Information Acts or the Massachusetts one, in order to compel MBI to release anything. And so we've been able to get the emails from the consultants that bid on the work for the challenge. And so we've got a couple of their proposals that we can kind of look at. They all kind of are similar. And it's just going to be a couple of webinars and some office hours to explain how to submit challenges. It's not going to be the kind of heavy technical assistance we were looking for, where a consultant comes out, helps gather the data, helps craft a proposal or a challenge and helps submit it. It's going to be some here's how you click send, have fun, that kind of assistance. So
just as background, MBI, I think we've had 2 of these now, Brian, 2 information sessions. And other than the fact that they are trying to hire regional, call them facilitators, to help municipalities file these challenges, as Brian said, it looks like their scope is going to be very limited compared to what the towns need. And other than that, their webinars basically said, gee, keep an eye on our webpage. We'll let you know what to do in due time. You will be duly informed. Goodbye. So that was 2 hours.
I went to
Maybe
the
you run one too, right?
yeah, I went to the select board meeting with all the legislators there, and with respect to that, you know, all your questions will be answered. See the landing board. This is sort of like, it reminded me of the Wizard of Oz. You know, all your questions will be answered. But when you pull back the curtain, there's nothing there. But just because I wanted to be sure, I while I was waiting for the meeting to start, I went to their website, and there's nothing. You know, and how many weeks ago was it that they told us that all those questions would be answered on the landing site?
They do reiterate how excited they are
Oh
to
yeah,
be
they're
able to
excited.
redeploy the money for digital equity, because apparently no one's going to get any money in BEAD.
Yeah, so if they don't get BEAD money, then where does that money go?
Well, very good questions, but again, I apologize for not being able to get to the select board. I was sitting on a tarmac in Baltimore, waiting to take off, so I couldn't participate when I
Well,
finally.
we can get to that back when we get down to public.
Right. Okay.
Uh,
Well,
Anne-Marie has a question as well. She's got her hand up.
liaison.
go ahead, Anne-Marie.
I think perhaps, while I'm at this workshop, an opportunity to network and get the ear of MBI to ask them questions and see what we can get for answers, or at least try.
Okay.
We need bodies. We need technically skilled bodies to come out here, collect the data, and put a challenge application together, because none of us are qualified to do all that, put it together in the time frame. They need to just send out the capacity to do this and handle the contracting details, because we can't, as a town, contract someone fast enough to do this, even if they handed us the money. They just need to hand us the body to do it.
Anne-Marie, a specific request for you at that meeting on the 16th. If you could get a detailed list of contacts from the other towns who were dealing with this. We know we're in contact with a number of the town committees who are dealing with these issues, but to the extent that you've got points of contact in individual town administrations, that would be very helpful, and we could interface through their town committee to try to deal with this. I would hope the Cape Cod Commission is hoping to come up with some kind of a plan to deal with digital equity regionally.
I think that's probably going to be in the forefront of this workshop. So if the Cape Cod Commission can regionally identify if there's some consistencies amongst all of the Cape, right? and there is Wi-Fi or lack thereof, then I think it's a really great opportune time for the commission to take a hold of how do we accomplish this regionally, and should we be the ones grabbing, the money and then following through with helping each of the individual municipalities in digital equity success in some of their implementation. So it would be nice if that would happen.
Again, the plan that the commission, the draft at least, talked about a digital equity navigator. And they talked about individual town navigators and/or a regional navigator. And it'd be very nice if a framework were put together at that meeting on the 16th. Further,
we can actually address that sooner than that, given the MBI's got the American Connection Corps program. It's like actively taking applications right now that could serve to fill the navigator role.
So
Okay.
just want to point out that Council on Aging has a digital navigator program. It's available once a week, I think, is a sign up for 4-hour period.
Yep, that's true. But talking to a member of the library board of trustees, they were very interested in having access to that.
Totally.
Yeah, so again, there are numerous opportunities to do that, and presumably at least townwide and maybe for the whole county, region-wide, it would be very useful. Also, Brian, it's unclear to me, is the digital navigator function, is that within the scope of this facilitator that they put the RFPs out for?
Oh, so this is a different grant program. I don't know, what do you call it?
Is this the American?
So yeah, two separate issues. Yeah. So the MBI is looking for consultants for Challenge. That's the proposals we just got. That's going to be much different than a digital navigator, because there's just a whole bunch of different programs that are digital equity, and so that has to do with BEAD. But we should definitely discuss this other program. I don't know when you want to slot that in under funding.
Well, again, I'm going to chairman's prerogative here right now. I'm going to add this new one in under your funding committee, and this is the digital American Connectivity Corps. Is that the name of it, Brian? Why don't you summarize what that is and what they're soliciting and what?
So American Connection Corps. It almost reminds me of those programs where they take someone right out of college and then they implant them somewhere for about a year.
AmeriCorps.
Basically like that. And it's being sponsored by MBI, and Comcast is throwing a lot of money for scholarships to cover this. So what they do is they pick a group of people every year, and they plant them into nonprofits, governments around the country to handle digital equity kind of things. So they give you help with grant writing. They can help be a digital navigator. They can work between multiple organizations within an area. They said with the caveat, you can't overload them because it's only about a 30-hour-a-week position, and that they need to have one boss for various contract reasons. And but they can have lots of mentors and people to teach them, since they want it to be a positive experience. But it looked like an interesting grant because Comcast and MBI were putting together a pot of money, so we could qualify for a full grant for the first year, as long as we create the slot and have someone to manage them. And it's kind of thing, if it's a successful, we could, be planning a year in advance to be asking for a budget line item to be covering it, since it's about $35,000 they're saying is the yearly amount. But we could get that probably waived in the first year through a combination of MBI and Comcast funds. And I think it would help us because it would cover some of that lack of resources in town hall to deal with this. If we get an extra body available, that solves some of those concerns, especially since we've had a lot of concern that there might not be enough resources for a digital navigator. This could perfectly fill that gap. And potentially to take the load off of town hall, we might want to have them be directed by the library, since the library's already got some of our digital equity activities that are going on, and seems keen to be involved in these kind of programs. So I feel like this is kind of a nice slam dunk. We should at least attempt to get the grants to pay for this and open up the position. And if it goes well, this could be a yearly thing.
What's the deadline for it?
Soon, but I warned them that the wheels of government will only go so fast. So if this committee is supportive of it, I believe we could reach out and let them know to potentially start earmarking softly for someone until the select board can direct the either the library or the town manager to complete that process.
Okay, well, we've got a process to go through. Do I hear a motion from somebody that we recommend to the select?
A question from Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie, go ahead. I didn't see your hand.
I just put it up. Brian, now we're reorganizing the IT department and reaching out to have the county, right, contract with the county. Is that something that's in the purview, digital navigating, with an individual from the county as part of our contract? Is that possible that be part of our contract with the county to have an individual who is a digital navigator, right? That encompasses everything we need with respects to the digital
The county would be an eligible entity if they wanted to apply. We could also direct, if you wanted them to be directed to be working for the county and the county wants to fill out the application, it's possible. We'd have to move pretty quickly.
But I'm just saying,
that would be possible.
I'm asking within the scope of the contract and what we want that county's IT department to do for us, then the onus is on them to figure it out, right?
I think it's so the thing that it couldn't be a for-profit entity. So that was they said their big restriction. So a government was allowed, nonprofits are allowed, schools are allowed. So if I don't see why we couldn't have the county do it. In some ways, I feel like the county could maybe apply for or if they are going to get a full-time permanent digital navigator, this program would be a good add-on. So like to have that person, have the intern, so to speak, or the fellow report to the full-time person so that they have more resources for Bourne.
Okay.
The one question I have is just what kind of level of effort, if the county were to apply and they were to get one person under this connectivity core, 30 hours a week, covering the needs of 15 towns, is somebody who's going to be spread pretty thin.
Too thin, yeah.
So there might be in terms of discussion, it might be worthwhile to think about applying for a position for the town, and I'm sure MBI would say the most efficient way to do this is to have this administered through the county. I'm sure they would accept an amendment to a proposal, but I think the appropriate thing right now is that I will entertain a motion that we recommend to the select board that they investigate obtaining one of these slots under this connectivity core grant, and that may be independent of grants for digital navigators, independent of the digital equity grant, etc. I think this is a separate funding opportunity, and I think the town should pursue it. But anyway, I'll entertain a motion, something along that line.
I think too, in the interest of time, the town should apply this time And we can always direct them, like if things materialize with the county, we can always, informally direct them to work with the county personnel. But I think maybe the library is the right body to be the quote unquote manager. And just so we don't lose the opportunity, we should probably have the town, at least this year, do the contracting.
And we ought to explicitly in the application ask MBI to waive the $35,000 town co-payment for the first year, because we're already beyond, by then we'll be beyond town meeting, et cetera. So the coming fiscal year is already spoken for. One of the complaints we have about their process is that they ignore the town meeting schedule, et cetera, for us. Okay. Brian, you want to formalize that as a motion, just so Wendy
Sure.
I can write it down in an
words,
organized
yeah.
fashion.
A motion to recommend to the select board that they direct the library to pursue this, and or if they want the town manager.
The library or the town administrator as a friendly amendment.
Anne
Okay,
Marie
What's
has
the
her
question,
hand up.
Anne-Marie?
Marie, go ahead.
So here's the sticky piece of that, right? The library is governed by a board of trustees, elected members of a board of trustees. I'm not sure the select board has the authority, which I'm almost 99% sure, to direct the elected body to do A, B, or C. So we're gonna have to figure out how we navigate that, okay?
So we
So
just make a recommendation to the library trustees that they pursue this?
Well,
no, because no.
we're a select board advisory committee, so we have to make the
so-
recommendation to the select board that they pursue the grant and then leave it up to them to sort out how to get it done.
But we can make recommendations as to how they get it done, which might include
Yes,
a friendly
yes.
phone call to the library
Fine,
trustees.
good enough? Sure.
I would include specifically in this, I know we just have a motion, but
Yes.
the recommendation itself, obviously we need to be more specific, similar to the recommendations you made from this round of grants from MBI for the 100,000. That was on point. It was perfect. So this would have to be the same.
So dictate it to me, Anne Marie.
Well, Brian can dictate the motion. I'm not a voting member, so Brian needs to
So-
dictate the motion.
We the SciTech committee recommend that the board select board direct a member of town government to complete this application and work with the American Connection Corps to obtain one of their fellows.
And further, just friendly amendment here. Further, we direct that the application to the MBI requests that the $35,000 town co-payment be waived for the first year, because the application process is after the budget for the 2025 fiscal year has been set already. That should be.
Yeah, I believe our participation should be contingent upon MBI and or Comcast doling out of scholarships, since that would be an extreme barrier right now, given the realities of
Well,
fiscal management of a town.
we just say that we request that MBI waive the $35,000 town co-payment for the first year. And
Okay,
then
I second the motion.
okay.
Yeah.
Everybody okay with that wording? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those, anybody opposed? I don't see anybody opposed. Okay, I will, when I get the wording, after we approve approve that, I will take the wording from Wendy and I will send that in an email to the select board. Okay, moving on. Again, we are still under, give me a second here. We are.
Yeah, I'll put it back up. Yeah, Jen just suggested that I take it down. take the agenda down so people can see who's speaking.
Yeah, that's great. I've got it on my phone here beside me. I just have to pull both up at the same time.
All right. Well, I brought it back up. So gap round 2 is next. Yeah.
Gap round 2, as far as I know, gap round 1 funding has not been awarded yet. So that's still in the shop of MBI, and no word on when gap round 2 will be announced. It's been postponed a couple of times. So we will table that for the time being. Okay. Moving on to the residential retrofit program. Anne Marie, go ahead.
Sorry, want me added to the list of questions for MBI when we have them in the room?
Sure.
Sure, why not? It's a great grant if they would award it or tell anyone what's going on.
Or tell, and I have to tell you, again, with a couple of conversations with the folks from New Bedford, who put a lot of time and effort in their funding angel, put a lot of money into a consultant to develop their GAP grant. They want to know whether this, in fact, if they're rejected, does that mean they have to scramble to put together a BEAD challenge process application? So they're on tenterhooks too. They may have to start all over again if they're rejected on this grant. Okay. Moving forward with residential retrofit program for again the citizens who are on the call. This program is a program that is funded directly to the telecom companies, essentially to provide state-of-the-art connections to low-income or municipally owned multiple dwelling units, public housing in a sense. There are some income qualifications. All 4 of Bourne's properties qualify. Only one of theirs, Bourne's, was on the original list. Through Brian's efforts, we pestered MBI and I can't remember her first name, Carrie Garcia. Also let MBI know that 3 other properties qualified on the list for possible funding. I contacted Ellen Cummings and never got a response back to let her know that these 4 properties, 3 of them were right adjacent to Verizon's FiOS rollout, kind of north of Monument Beach, and they would be perfect opportunities for very easy connections without having to put any cable down. And they would need about 2 miles of FiOS connection from the Depot Road wire house to connect the Roland Finney facility on Shore Road. And I never heard a response back. Anne Marie, you were able to contact Comcast about that and let them know that this funding was available?
Not Comcast, Open Cape.
Open Cape, I'm sorry. Yeah, and did they was there any indication that they might apply for the grant to service?
I'll follow up, but as of last time I followed up, they hadn't moved forward, so I'm not sure.
Okay. Hopefully, the opportunity, I think, was funding has to be applied for by the end of May. So who knows?
If you get a hold of them, we had some ideas of a route that they might find profitable. If they go up Barlow's instead of going from Depot Road, they might find that path more attractive.
Are you talking to me, Brian? To relay
Yeah,
that?
so if you get a hold of Open Cape, so one of the things they didn't like about past proposal was didn't go by enough commercial. And so if they want to go from Depot Road, it's going to pass mostly residential. But if they peel off some fiber from and go down Barlow's, you could still reach the facility that way, but you're going to pass a bunch of banks, a bunch of little like office park things going on, like 10 or 15 or like 100 different businesses on the way there. They might find that path more attractive.
Okay.
They're allowed. Again, they're allowed to service anybody along those routes if they
correct.
As long as they hit the target of which would be Roland Finney facility. Well, anyway, so the ball is in the court of the companies, and you know, we've done what we can to inform them that this opportunity, especially for both Verizon and Open Cape, are very close to both of the three of those facilities, and all they've got to do is make the connections inside the units, and they've got those customers online paid for by this grant.
Is there something we can do with regard to, I guess we've locked down a place for the new fire house now?
Have we?
And well, it looks like the town has agreed to purchase the land, the former county land on Dr. Julius Kelly Drive, which means that's where they want to put the new fire station. So is
Huh.
there something in there that requires or urges Open Cape to connect to that?
One would hope.
Yeah, but I
I
don't think
mean,
they could use this retrofit program. I believe it's only residential.
oh, okay.
That's my understanding.
Because I know in the past they were trying to interconnect. We were all town facilities, so I'm just thinking that might be.
Oh, sure, yeah, but they might, but this program, I believe, is only for residential.
Yeah, and it's specifically for public housing, multiple dwelling units. It could be nonprofit housing for low income clients, but it is dwelling units only. Okay, the next is the annual municipal grant, and what is the deadline on that, Brian?
Let me pull it up. I'll have to check.
I think it may already be passed, actually. And so
Possible.
so that's an opportunity lost, but it is one that comes up every year.
Yep, March 11th, and we'll close on April 12th. So we are past the window.
Okay. So Jed, for our working long agenda, you can delete that for the future. That comes up.
That does mean though we are eligible again next year, assuming the program renewal. So when the select board has finalized its plans for the firehouse, that would be the perfect first choice, I guess.
I'm chuckling because you think they'll be finalized by next year.
Hmm.
I'm forever hopeful for some certainty about the location.
I think the location, yeah, it'll probably take about a year to get that land out of chapter 97. Just about, we're hoping to expedite the process, given that, you know, it's about emergency services, so who knows? But we don't have control over that.
Yeah, and recall that for that piece of property, that is within probably 100 feet of the last FiOS pole, south of Mark.
The proposed property next to the ball field you're talking about.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Are they still going for that? I thought they were gonna move it down to the land they just purchased.
No, that land purchase was decided upon at 2019 town meeting. We can use that land to mitigate
Okay.
what we're taking out of.
Oh, that's the exchange property. I see.
The land swap.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I thought they were gonna actually move the fire station down there.
Too many barriers.
So
Okay.
are they still thinking about, I don't know, putting pontoons under the fire station on Barlow's Landing
No,
Road
that
and
they
keeping that in
killed that.
service?
Flood
Yeah.
zone. That's not
Well,
happening.
we gotta get back on
Alright.
the agenda, folks.
Yeah, come on, we've got a lot to
Okay.
do yet. Okay, continuing. Okay, so that ends the municipal funding opportunity subcommittee. In terms of public outreach opportunities, again, we talked the two items that are here are media outreach. And Wendy, you have been sending minutes to the enterprise.
As they get approved, yeah, we're a little behind on that. So the one that we approved today will go out as soon as I get off the call.
Okay.
Uh,
And have you gotten any comments back from either the editor or Roush the reporter about any of these?
I have not. The editor was away for a while and her voicemail was piling up, and whoever she delegated to was not returning calls. I think Roush was at the select board meeting the other night, and he was sort of making himself scarce, and he didn't ask me for anything.
Okay,
We'll keep at it. I've been posting the applicable not too technical or too far afield bits from the pots and pans on the Bourne Facebook list, and people seem to be pretty responsive about that. I've gotten a couple of responses back. And even when people do not respond, when I talk to them in person, they read it and they're finding them interesting. So it's a slow public education process, but people need to know some of the background for all of this stuff. I have a note here for survey ideas, but who or what are we surveying and to what purpose?
well, again,
The upcoming need's going to be the challenge, so we need the worst of the worst and recruited so that we can
yeah.
deal with
Yeah.
the
I
deal with that.
continue to flog doing speed tests, and I post the links for them. But as we know, we don't know how much of those will be accepted as legitimate data. And of course, there are plenty of people who aren't on Facebook because they have no broadband, and so they're not going to be doing speed tests either. But we do what we can.
Should we be collecting emails of these people so that we have a database ready of people interested in helping during the challenge?
I do not have anybody that said that they will be able to do that, but I can ask for some.
We might need to start crafting a formal message recruiting people, since it's going to come up fast when we need them.
So what are we asking them for?
We need to find people who speed test results are less than 25.3 consistently, and are willing to be our guinea pigs for the town, since we're going to need at least a certain number of them per census block tract. So we need to start recruiting, at least 30, 40, 50 people that have less than 25.3 all over town.
Just a very simple question for a heading for the Facebook entry would be, are you having regular or occasional problems with your internet connection?
Oh yeah, that comes up fairly regularly, and there are usually 40 or 50 or 60 people saying, well, yeah, I do, or no, I don't. And for
just
the
say-
ones that don't, I ask them where they are. I ask them where they are anyway, and sometimes they tell me.
Yeah, you can just ask them to send you your email, ask if they're interested in helping with doing speed testing during the challenge process, and ask us have them send you their email address, and we'll send them instructions on how to do it.
Yeah.
It's actually not just limited to 25.3. It can be 100 by 20. So if people are getting less than that as well,
Right.
that's also viable.
That's the new FCC standard.
Yeah, it is. I was going to say, and right now, the trees are still coming into leaf, but the tourists are not coming into town. And so, at my house, it runs, 35-ish, which is sort of adequate. But in another 8 weeks, when the tourists are here and the leaves are full, that's going to go right on down to 800K. So
Well, primarily, there needs to be Comcast users, given that you're challenging one provider. We'll have to double check the details about the fixed wireless, since you use fixed wireless service. So,
just ask who is your provider, and would you be interested in helping with the our town committee with the formal challenge process.
Yeah.
About their claims of adequate service throughout Bourne.
This is a really good idea, and we just instruct them how to make a speed test, and then try to basically either send us the results or do a screenshot, which would be even better, of what the results are, so we have something to go with that's concrete.
we're going to have to teach them how to run it directly plugged into the modem. So that's going to be one of the annoying bits is because it's
Yeah,
not over wide.
Did
It's
they
not
say
over
it had to
Wi-Fi.
be direct? I know on the federal NTIA bead challenge document, it doesn't have to be directly connected, but it has to be close. You know, it has to be nearby on Wi-Fi. They seem to be able to accept that. Although there's no way to measure it, you know, there's no way to prove it.
Well,
I don't know, but they seem to keep talking about being plugged into the modem
Oh,
whenever
do they?
MBI
All right.
opens
Well,
their
maybe
mouth. So
Massachusetts might have gone that far because it's the one in the federal one was too vague, in my opinion.
Mhm. Do they have a restriction on whose speed test they want to have, they will accept, or will they take any of them? There
yeah,
are, 4 or 5
yes,
easily.
they will have a tool that we have to use that should have been announced months ago, but we sit here with the thumbs under our butt, unable to know who the speed test is. Actually, that'd be a good FOIA request. Who's the contracted speed test provider? Because probably the contract's done, they just haven't announced it. It might be worth coming in through the sledgehammer method of getting info.
Okay, that's MBI.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
let me.
Oh yeah. You want to do that,
Provider.
Brian?
Yeah, I'll do it right now.
John has his
Okay.
hand up. Go ahead, John.
no, it's just oh, I
John
was
York.
John York, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. This is the part of the discussion that I came into this meeting for. I really like the way you're promoting speed tests, the way you talked about them 6-8 months ago. I didn't really try it myself until just last week. I know this is the off season. My results are remarkably noisy. I can get on the download, I can get 400, and then 5 minutes later, I can get 80.
Yeah.
And on the upload, I can get 2, or if I'm really lucky, I might make it over 20.
Mhm.
But again, the details that I'm hearing now about how far you're from your modem and all that, I am careful to make sure there's no other loads when I do the speed test, and I'm pretty close to my modem. I would suggest the modem, we're low maintenance users in that we just take whatever Comcast gives us. So we're running the modem that Comcast gives us.
Mhm.
But as a user, that should be part of the test because it's the modem that Comcast is supplying unless you go out of your way to get something else. And I suspect that there's a lot of problems with the modem not living up to the specs that Comcast gives for it.
Oh, that's shocking.
Yeah. So anyway, but I want to thank you for everything you're doing. And I had a question. I've been using the speed test that I access via the Cape Cod Commission website, well, it's sponsored by Cape Cod Commission. It's on an app. If there's one that's already provided by a quasi-government agency locally for this purpose, it would be great if that could be the one that you piggyback on because it makes it more obvious to all of us what we're doing. Those are just various comments I have, and I really congratulate you guys for all the work you're doing, but especially the speed test concept. And I'll be looking for your notice that you're looking for guinea pigs. And I would also I would prefer that you post something on the town website. Post anything you want on Facebook, but to me that doesn't count notifying the public. So if you can have another outlet like the town website to attract people, I think that's a good thing.
Can we
Thank
do
you.
that, Anne Marie? Can they give us a little spot on the town website for this sort of data gathering?
Can certainly ask. I mean, Bob can certainly ask and CC me and ask that question.
Yeah, we have our own webpage. I mean,
well, we could have them
Oh.
email the committee as we have an email address now.
Mhm.
Put
Or a
up the
link,
announcement.
maybe a link. I'm not, that's a conversation you certainly can have with town hall.
So
And just
I'll point out a couple of things I know about the town hall web provider. You can add a folder called documents underneath. So it has, right now we have agenda, we have minutes. It's possible to add another folder called documents. I know I've seen some of the committees do that, and you can stick stuff in there. The only other place, and I don't know who runs this, but there's a news post, there's a news area that's at the top of the webpage
Mhm.
where I think you have to go through Kathleen Dutt. I could be wrong. But I think she puts press releases up there and any other notices that would go out to the town. So those are the two spots I think that we would have maybe some remote chance of putting anything up there.
Yeah, the bulletin section, it jumps right out at anyone who goes to the town website.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just don't know what the policy is or the procedure for putting something in there. And that, my guess is Kathleen is probably the place to start to query about that.
But I would suggest that the Bourne webpage, the Bourne Facebook page, I know probably sees 100-to-1 advantage over the town.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody seems to go on that Bourne, and this is what I get from my wife every day. She tells me about what's going on, and I don't see the stuff on the town website for some time. So if we could put a contact, get them started at least, Wendy, on the Bourne residents page.
Yeah, I
We'll
don't think
probably
we're
have a lot of
suggesting,
responses.
I don't think we're suggesting we back off from that, but just to follow through on John's comment that it isn't an official statement until it's on the webpage. So I also want to respond to one of John's questions about speed test tools. I'm starting to think that Ookla is probably the best place to go for
Agreed.
us. And one of the reasons is that you can opt in to having your data shared. So if you do Ookla and you do check that box, then that's the data that ends up going out to municipalities or other government agencies that subscribe to the data. So I'd suggest Ookla.
I agree that, but by far, I mean, like if you go on Comcast's website, they'll have a test, and I'm sure it will show everything is perfect. But Ookla is non-biased, basically.
Yeah, and they have it, and they also report the data publicly.
Okay, good idea.
And again,
I've requested it from the records access officer, all documents related to the speed testing for challenge, to especially the contracted tool.
can I solicit a volunteer of somebody to put together a less than 1 page set of instructions that we can send out to everybody? Either, a connection on the Bourne residence page or, within the somewhere in the town website. So that when the time for speed testing comes up, we can circulate this far and wide and get as many people as possible to go and do these speed tests.
Sure, yeah.
I can do that. I have, with patient teaching, you have to assume a basic reading level of 4th grade. That's not a slam on anybody, but that's just the national average. And so it's really easy for me to do that sort of thing. So what I do is I go on to, a patient teaching site or instructions on how to fix your dishwasher site or whatever, and go through it and see. Now, if I didn't know anything at all about this and I didn't know what those big words were, how would I read this? And so, I can put something like that together. Brian?
Okay, thank you, Wendy.
So,
Okay.
so one of the concerns right now, and why this is difficult, is because MBI hasn't released their own instructions of how we're supposed to do this. So I think you might take Jed and Wendy working together to take a guess at what's going to be in there. And maybe if we're doing a first draft, it's purely a guess right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't really think we can do much until we know what the tool is.
True, but let's start getting this drafted. Okay, by the time we get to our next meeting, we may actually get instructions from MBI on what the tool is, and we can drop that in.
Yeah, and maybe Brian will get something back from his FOIA request about, whatever their features they're looking for.
Okay.
It's crazy. That's how I have to get info out of them, but it starts a statutory clock that they have to respond, and they've got 10 days. So,
again, I just don't, I'd like to get this going early because I don't want to get into a panic when we get to our next meeting is May 16th.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, here's your speed test, and we want you to start the thing during the challenge process that starts in a week and a half. And I don't want to panic then to get the information out right then. I'd like to have it at least available in draft.
Well, can we at least, as it was originally suggested, reach out to people and say, here, have Wendy get in touch with them and say, look, here's a speed test you can do for now. have them go to Ookla and
Yeah.
report back. So at least we can assemble a list of people who say,
Mm.
as John said, gee, my thing goes from X to Y in a few minutes. There's valuable data right there. And so at least we know who to reach out to.
Mhm. And I can emphasize that, run these for practice.
Right. Good idea.
And, and when we have when we know what they really want, we'll have another tool for you, but by then you'll be really good at this.
We do know that the citizens aren't going to be able to submit the challenge data directly. That's the one caveat we have figured out about the process. And it's going to be that an eligible entity has to submit it, so the town. So we'll be having to consolidate this data one way or another.
Okay.
The other thing we're going to need from them is a copy of their bill as part of this. So
Oh,
a
geez.
speed test.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. We already commented in the draft regulation that this is an onerous ask when Comcast could just produce the data in 3 seconds in the rebuttal. But they're requiring a copy of the bill to be sure that they're subscribed to a high enough tier, even though I think that raises data privacy concerns. So we're going to have to figure out where to have people drop these since account numbers are restricted info. And so I'll have to go back over the data privacy law to make sure what kind of security we have to have around this to not inadvertently violate state law in collecting this in the way the state has asked us to collect
And
it.
we have to provide assurances to the individuals, people submitting
Sure.
the data that we're not going to violate their trust, frankly, and
Sure.
and we may have a reticence of people to even participate if they have to provide that kind of personal data.
And the other thing is, a lot of people don't even get a paper bill, so they can't, quote, send us a copy. And they don't know how to take a screenshot, or they don't
Or to
even,
download,
they
yeah.
never see anything regarding that. And, it just comes
Yeah.
automatically out of their bank
Right.
account or their credit card.
Comcast will give you a discount if you do auto pay.
Yeah.
So exactly. So there's no real record of it.
So there's no real documentation, right? So, that's something else to, Anne Marie, when you go to this meeting and you want to talk about the barriers that we have to deal with, there's a big one.
Yeah.
The data they say is, I like to say, I used to be married to somebody like this. If you would do thus and such, that would be great. And I would do thus and such. And they said, well, but you would need to do this and this too. And I would do this and this. And then, but you didn't do that and these other things. And I would do all those. And it was never freaking enough. That's what these guys are doing.
Well, part of it may be driven by NTIA. I'm going to move along from that. I think we've covered that fairly readily. One other item for the survey, and this is something we discussed before, was the idea of some way to survey Bourne citizens to just briefly give them the kind of the options that Falmouth is now considering. Do they want a town-owned and operated system? Do they want a totally a single provider to provide a new fiber system, or do they want some kind of a hybrid? Or maybe well, I don't really care. I just want another alternative to the current provider. Something
Or I don't know enough to make a decision.
Yeah, I was going to
Because
say
people don't
it-
understand these things yet.
that's a tough question to ask in two
Yeah.
sentences because there's so many implications behind every single one of those options. I just don't know how that's a tenable survey in just 2 sentences.
I think we should gather the data first, and then once we establish clearly that there's a problem, that's the time to ask that question. Because as Jed said, I mean, the financial implications of a town-owned system are huge. And
well, Falmouth is well ahead of us on this, but just with regard to the survey, the idea of perhaps providing some education as we move into the fall, and then execute a survey later on after we provide the results of the speed testing, et cetera, then we can just try to get some more citizen input on it. I just want to get a gauge of where people are happy and where people are unhappy.
Sure. I guess I'd be more inclined to do something along the lines of the Doug Dawson effort that they did in Falmouth. I think it would give a more comprehensive and a better picture, I think, of where the citizens are at.
No, I think that's a good model. I think that is a good model, but that was the discussion we had before. Okay, well, I'm going to table any further discussion of that, and we'll move forward. One moment here.
Okay.
Select board presentation in June.
Yes, exactly. Anne Marie, I think we want to get on the agenda in June sometime when you discuss the what we've done on the way forward. I think it's time for another presentation from us on before the select board sometime in some agenda in June.
So the committee's tentatively set for June 4th.
Okay. So we ought to be putting a presentation together at the next meeting. I don't think we need a very maybe just an outline to go up as a PowerPoint, just as talking points. I'm not going to go over heavily of where we've been. That's been I think that's been well trod, but I do want to talk about the opportunities as we go forward. Like for instance, the challenge process will be coming up immediately. Then we should have some more guidance, some more clarity from MBI, I hope by then, since it's supposed to start June 15th, and what the implications of that would be. I'm going to start drafting a presentation for our next meeting. Just very briefly, I'm just going to have bullet points to discuss, and then we can discuss it at the next meeting and have that ready for presentation on June 4th.
Bob, if I could make a recommendation,
Yeah,
I
go
would piggyback off of the quarterly report that the committee has already, and maybe highlight the changes and what, maybe the recommendations that have already been expended.
Okay.
Because that'll be that we have yet to have that conversation as a board, and I want to make sure that we do as a board have that conversation of the recommendations. So maybe to piggyback off of that, where we're at, what the committee feels strongly for continuing, what recommendations the committee feels strongly about continuing and moving forward with, and that's going to drive, obviously, the other conversation we had earlier about the charge of the committee and the scope of the work.
Okay. It was around, for everybody's reference, that February presentation. If you still have the PowerPoint, it was around slides 7, 8, and 9. We had the timeline and some other things there. Much of that has passed. Much of it is moot or obsolete. But I can put that up and point out exactly what has passed, what we did pursue, what the town didn't pursue, and what still are going to be hot items coming up very quickly, and then amend that by adding other items that come up on the timeline that we need to discuss further. I think that's a good point, Anne Marie.
Do we know how much time?
Sorry, Jed.
No, I was going to say, do we know how much time the
Okay.
board is going to give us for this presentation?
Usually, well, I don't know what's on that agenda, the rest of the agenda yet. But it should be forthcoming, some of the highlights and monthly agenda items. But I would say 15 minutes, 10 to 15 is usually the standard time slot for presentations. So
yeah, and MJ pointed out that we ran a bit long the last time, and I didn't think it was particularly long, given that I threw 80% of the slides away. But
well, I also stressed to MJ the importance of, as a board, we need to have this conversation. We need to do diligence with the recommendations of this committee, and just bring it to the table. We haven't had that yet, so June 4th is the time to do that. So I would even go as much as like even put up the same quarterly report, Bob, and cross off, what has passed, and then in maybe a different color, add to it.
Okay, well, again, I'm going to start to get an outline of this together by the next meeting on the 16th. We do have another meeting on the 30th, which will be right before that. So we'll have an opportunity to adjust that as we see fit. So there's good opportunities to go forward here. Okay. Let's see, where are we here? Okay, Jed, could you pull up the agenda again? I can't seem to get mine.
Liaison with the Cape Cod Tech Council.
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry, yeah, so liaison with the Cape Cod Technology Council?
okay. I have been away on a vacation for a week, but Brian, remind me of the two upcoming meetings. I recall having seen a couple. There's one on the next Friday, as I recall. I've just got
Yeah, there's a first Friday meeting coming up, and then, right, the infrastructure group meets every third Wednesday, right? So that'll be coming up.
right.
I think it's an AI related conversation. It's one of their first Friday events. I haven't seen the agenda for the next infrastructure committee, however.
I have not either. Okay.
Yeah, so that'll be like 9 o'clock, I think, on the 16th, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it? I think it's the third. Oh, it's on the Wednesday, so it'll be the day before our meeting, right? They're on Wednesdays.
Right. And presumably, Anne Marie, you if you're going to be at the Cape Cod Commission on Digital Equity on the 16th, you will not be on our next meeting, right?
It's, that workshop starts later in the day, so I will be present at that meeting.
Okay, okay. And we can discuss that then. Okay. Next item is
So that's liaison with other towns. So
Yeah.
I know we have David on, but I'll just take a second here and go over what I've heard or seen, and then leave it to David to fill in the blanks there. But the MLP, if you look at the public agenda that they've posted, they've been meeting with Boundless 2 meetings in a row now, in executive session, but I haven't seen anything reported publicly. And there's something on the agenda for tonight, potentially. The MLP is also, according to the agenda, meeting with the Falmouth Net Board. Haven't seen anything stated publicly as to what's come out of that. As the MLP election, I think it's in 2 weeks. There's two-year terms. There were 4 people running. I think it might be down to 2. David can fill us in. I think David and Courtney are going to be the only 2. And there's a 3-year term. There was somebody running. I think she dropped out. And there's also an incumbent who, as far as I know, is not running. So it looks like that's what I understand is going on there. And as far as Boundless goes, I don't see them showing up on the select board agenda at this point. So it all seems to be behind the scenes with the MLP. So anyway, that's what I've seen publicly. David, you want to add it to that?
I think you pretty much nailed it. That I am currently running unopposed for a 2-year seat. So is Courtney Bird. We are assessing several write-in candidates to support for the 3-year seat. But currently there's nobody running for it. And that the negotiations with Boundless have been closely held. I'm not really privy to any of it. I haven't been in any of the executive sessions because I'm not on the board yet. Yeah, pretty much what you said.
So the one thing I would ask you, have you been to the MLP meetings, the public version of the MLP meetings, the last 2?
The last 2 meetings have largely been executive session, and I haven't attended.
So it was the Falmouth Net Board, because on the last 2 agenda, they said meeting with the Falmouth Net Board, and then
Right.
nothing gets reported out.
The actual meeting is tonight.
Oh, with the Falmouth Net Board.
Yes.
Okay.
David, could I ask a question? Is Boundless still trying to go through the MLP, or are they just going to eventually go around that and go to the town?
My understanding is that they're working on a memorandum of understanding with the MLP. Several weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, the MLP appeared at the select board meeting and asked whether they had appropriate authority to negotiate in the gray area, since Boundless isn't going to be a municipal utility per se, whether they had authority to flesh out the discussions with Boundless, and the select board said, yeah, the MLP is the right body to carry this forward, and then there have been several executive sessions.
It's my understanding,
good to
though, that this MOU would be between the town and Boundless,
That's my understanding.
right? And so the MLP is really just acting as a sort of agent in the temporary sense, but that MOU has to go in front of the select board in a public forum, is my understanding.
That is one of the things I would be looking for clarification tonight on.
Yeah.
Yeah, David, I don't know if you can fill this in, but Courtney Bird, I guess, was the person who was drafting the initial part of the MOU prior to hiring some kind of an outside counsel who has expertise in this. But that, as I understand it, was going to include, for instance, what happens at the end of something like a 5-year term when Boundless's venture capital funders want to back out or want to sell out, etc. Is presumably items like that are in this MOU that's being held closely right now.
I have no idea actually, but I think the idea that there are investors that want to back out is a red herring. There's always investors with different time. I mean, think of basically any corporation, like a publicly traded corporation. Stockholders come and go. In a private equity situation, private equity investors come and go. They have different ideas about rates of return and the time horizons to liquidity and so on. And what Boundless has told us, I believe in the Cape Cod Commission, they said that they expect investors will come and go, but Boundless is committed to the long-term internet access on Cape Cod, and specifically in Falmouth.
So just a general question, I guess, on this. So I'm not quite sure I understand why an MOU is necessary, right? Boundless is a utility. The town has permitting and typical processes for dealing with utilities. Do you have any sense as to why there needs to be an MOU?
Well, I don't have any direct knowledge. So, like I say, that's all been closely held, but I know some of the issues under discussion have been the degree to which the Falmouth DPW will cooperate, and what the Boundless expects from the DPW, and presumably what the town expects from Boundless. I mean, Boundless has made some claims about 100% coverage and certain rate plans and certain time horizons and so on. And I would hope that it all be reflected in an MOU. Whether it's actually necessary, that's a good question. I don't know, but there's enough transactional stuff that needs to go on between the town and Boundless that it doesn't hurt to write it down.
Yeah, okay. I could see some of that, like in exchange for 100% coverage, you'll give us some sort of leniency or maybe fast track on permitting or something like that, or even some, right, or even some like kind exchange on DPW expenses. Okay. I'm pure speculation on my part, but I get it. I can see that now. All right.
Yeah, all of this is speculation on my part too, and and some rumor level stuff, but like I say, no direct knowledge whatsoever. But you can imagine that there's enough
Yeah.
complexity that it doesn't hurt to write it down.
Yeah. Got
So
it.
it's the
Okay.
issue of enforceability in the event of non-performance by the town or by Boundless, or substandard, that they agreed to X but only deliver 50% of X, either party. So at any rate, it's
Interesting.
it's enough of a deal that it doesn't hurt to be able to refer to the text of the initial agreement.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, and I would
think this is-
imagine, sorry, I would imagine that Boundless is looking for some level of assurances from the town before they direct more and more resources towards this project. So it's just memorializing agreement that the town and Boundless would be working together going forward.
Yeah,
I think this is, right. I was gonna say, I think this is why the MLP is also looking for some legal help. I mean, I watched that meeting in its entirety, and I know they're concerned. And I think that the select board is also concerned because they don't have the expertise. So they're kind of reaching out and saying, well, give us a hand here. And then the MLP was saying, okay, we can do that, but you have to supply us with some legal help when it's required, because the wording could get very tricky.
Again, David, the interest of Bourne here is very obvious. They've already expressed an interest to expand out of Falmouth as their anchor point. We are the next obvious connection point, and the details of this MOU when it becomes public, or or perhaps even the who you use as a legal counsel, are of great interest to us as a possible way forward in the future. So we're going to stay tuned very closely. So you'll see us signing in for those meetings periodically.
Oh, me too. I'm gonna. I'm on the edge of my chair waiting to see what the news is.
Very good. Okay, thank you. I'm going to move forward right now. Jed, is there any other activity in any of the other towns that you've heard?
Very little.
Okay. Well, we'll stay tuned. Presumably, we'll get a lot more points of contact when Anne Marie reports back from that closed Cape Cod Commission meeting with all the other stakeholders around the Cape.
Yeah, there seems to be more going on at the county level.
Yep. Okay. Let's stay tuned. The next is you folks can fill me in terms of discussions with the legislative delegation that came to the select board on Monday night. Somebody give a report on that. Wendy, you were there.
Yeah, I don't, I think I was the only one there. I was where I was sitting, I couldn't see the screen. So did anybody else attend on?
I
remote?
attended remotely.
And so did I. Yeah.
I was pretty disappointed.
Well, you want to hear about disappointment? I got there early because I was hoping these people would like show up and mill around in the room outside, and I would get a chance to talk to them. Unfortunately, they were timely and they showed up just as things were beginning. But I did. I said hi to MJ, and she said, "Are you here for the legislative?" And I said yes. And you're going to hear reports, and said yes. And there will be time for questions, right? And she said, "Oh yes." And I said, "Okay, good." So we went in, and I was really impressed by a lot of the things that they were reporting on. Anybody that wants to know that, not a lot of it, actually zero of it, related to the word broadband or internet, but every single entity that presented, it struck me that they were all very dependent on using and having good broadband, which of course they take for granted, but we can't. But then when they finished, I kind of, signaled to MJ that I was ready to ask my question, and she said, and she blew me off and went on to the next item on the agenda. And
It
I
was a
was
very
not,
long meeting.
yeah, I don't care. This is a public meeting and we were supposed to be able to ask questions, and she knew that I was there specifically to do that. And so, I glared a little bit and got up to walk out, but all of them got up to walk out too. And so I corralled them outside. I didn't get Sue Moran or Dave Vieira because they took off a little early, but I got them all together and said, look, I came here specifically to talk to you, and these are our problems. And some of them were taking notes, and I got a couple of cards, and there was quite a bit of shall we say, surprise at what we have not been able to accomplish via MBI. And I suggested that perhaps they could maybe get somebody to set a fire under them somehow to help us, because they are being supremely unhelpful, and it looks like they intend to be unhelpful. Not to decide is to decide, and they do a lot of not deciding. And I told them that I had just gone on the website, like just before the meeting, to see if the promised resources were on the landing page, and of course they're not. We know that. So, and I also pointed out to them that all the other presentations, especially the public safety people, one of whom said they're pretty much beyond their capacity right now. They can't sign up other towns to join the regional public safety consortium. In part, they need a bigger building, but in part, they don't have decent internet either. And so we talked about some of that. I told them about getting the CSV for all the questions that MBI wouldn't answer, and why it was like pulling teeth to get anything out of them. And I told them about the challenges for the FCC maps. They're well aware of the FCC map shortcomings, but they weren't aware that we were getting so little help in fixing it. So I was really encouraged. Their body language was not at all, well, finish up with this woman because we got to get out of here. They like, were sitting and talking, and we had a really good discussion, and they were all very friendly. And one of them said he used to work for Comcast, and he said, yeah, we know about those people. And everybody said, yeah, we know about those people. And so it was actually a very interesting discussion. And they want to stay in touch, and they want to be on our mailing list. So I'm putting them on our mailing list, and that's
So
the
my
short
guess
form.
is, right, that was the federal delegation that would probably gave you the most attention, right?
Yeah.
It was probably Keating's. Because my impression was that the state delegation probably doesn't understand our issues.
Well, Exaros was there also, and he likes
seems
us.
sympathetic. He's sympathetic. I don't know that he really understands.
Well, he's trying to learn, and I'm trying to explain to him, but he also pulled me aside and said, I'm really glad you talked to these people, because this is federal money, and the MBI is essentially throttling it. And these people, the feds, need to know that intermediary is blocking us.
Right. I think
and
our best
they were
leverage
interested
points.
in that.
I think our best leverage points, based on what I saw going on there, are the Keating and the Markey representatives.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mark Lanigan.
Yeah.
I don't know the names, but yeah, whoever Keating and Markey sent representatives that seem.
And so did Warren. The Warren guy was really interested also.
Okay, all right.
So I have those.
And the other thing is that Keating covers a smaller area, number one, and number two, he's a Bourne resident.
Yes.
So that, to me, that's the biggest leverage point. I think that's the avenue. I think pursuing the state legislatures, our state reps, seems to be it's like pushing a wet noodle.
Oh yeah.
It's my ex-boss's favorite term. It doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're all aware of this, but at least my understanding is that on the 10th, our state legislative delegation will be making an appearance at Upper Cape Tech for an open meeting from 8 to 9:30. And I can put up the link if you hold on a second here.
I guess, but my comment stands. I think it's like pushing a wet noodle with them.
Well, here it is. I mean, I don't know if anybody wants to attend, but this might be another chance to.
And this is where at the
Right here, I just put it up.
Cape?
It's at the Upper Cape Tech, and it's being done through the Chamber of Commerce, the Cape Cod Canal Chamber, who we have a relationship with. I can email everybody the link. This is from the enterprise.
Uh-huh.
I'll modify my opinion and then say that Dylan Fernandez is running for Susan Moran's
Yes.
seat. And he's the one who got the earmark for Falmouth for the Tilson work. So
What time is that thing?
It's
I
8
missed
to
it.
9:30.
8 to 9:30.
Yeah, I will right as the meeting concludes, I will send out a link to the article from the enterprise.
PM or AM?
AM.
AM, yes. Okay.
How long does it take to get an earmark? Because we could really
year.
earmark some consultant money. Oh,
about a
okay.
year. Well,
We-
it would have to go, I think the budget process for fiscal year 2026 will start in the fall. Fiscal year
I was just wondering if
2026.
there was another avenue for challenge if we're about to have if we're actively watching the ball drop on MBI providing help, if this is another way, but I guess
Well,
the year is
when I watched
gonna be for something
Dylan's,
else.
when I watched that what they did, so I think the fiscal year for 2026 starts July 1st, 2025. And I believe the budget process starts like late this year, early next year, and that's when you want to feed things in through committee in order to get them out of committee and into the budget bill.
Yeah.
But he will be the senator, presumably, if he wins the election come this fall.
Seems likely. So anyway, it was
Hey.
I was actually very encouraged. These people were really interested, especially, hearing about, it was like, oh yeah, we sort of knew about that, but we didn't really know how extensive this was. They also wanted to know from me how effective they thought we were being with advising the select board. And I said, well, we would like to be more involved, but we think they do listen to us, generally speaking. I really didn't want to go into that further, but I did say that they told us we were going to be able to ask questions, and then they cut us off. So there was that. And I'm sorry about that, Anne Marie, but it was a shocker to me. It really was.
And as it was because I didn't even get a chance to
Yeah.
ask you. I
Well, they
was
had
under the
important-
assumption that would go, but the chair so chose, unfortunately, that it just went so long, and I think we had a
But you know
jam-packed
what?
agenda.
That was perfectly foreseeable. Absolutely foreseeable.
I don't know. Some of those legislators went on forever, and I was not there for that. I am in a butter to the Pocasset Golf Course, and they were applying for a change in their alcoholic beverage license, and I was invited. I got a letter because of the fact that I'm in a butter. So, and I was waiting forever for that thing to come on, and it's like the legislators were going on and on and on and on and on. And
Well, yeah,
way too much
everybody
help,
wanted to get a little bit of the credit for the bridges, what they're all doing for it. I really was surprised by the presentation by the woman from the sheriff's department, because hearing about that their need for this expanded regional emergency prep thing, I said, that's got to include better better broadband. It's got to unify everybody on the same bandwidth and the same, radios and all that. And that's definitely something that we're all interested in. The other thing I tried to make clear to them was that I'm not just whining on behalf of the citizens of the town of Bourne. The entire Cape is unserved or underserved. And they said, oh, we're hearing this about MBI and this sort of behavior from our constituents out in the western part of the state and up in the North Shore. So this was not news to them. But I thought they were extremely attentive, which was a pleasant surprise.
With regard to the, really, go ahead, John, I'm sorry.
I was going to ask Anne Marie if it's within our purview to write to these legislators and express in a little bit more detail what our concerns are with MBI. Will that be something for us to do, or would the select board view that as their job?
I'm not sure about that. I mean, you're reaching out to gather information
Yeah.
to better serve and advise the select board. So I'm not,
Yep.
in a letter format, it has to go through select board. But if you're trying to express concern for what you're trying to do as a committee to our legislative body, I don't think that that's not outside of the charge.
Okay, so we could email them
But-
just representing
Oh, sure.
ourselves and just say, gee, this is the issue we run into. Is there
Yeah.
any way that we can get any help with this?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can email them, we can visit them in their offices, we can go out for coffee at Dunkin' Donuts with them. There's all sorts of ways that, and as I said, I was really gratified to see how interested they were.
I think that canal chamber session is an opportunity to dig in on this a little bit and then follow that up with emails, letters, etc.
Oh, that reminds me, Sheila Lyons from the county has just been elected to the select board of Wellfleet. So if we're thinking about, interacting with Wellfleet on any issues, she would have some background from her county perspective as well.
Yeah, there is a Wellfleet committee, as I recall. They're
Yep.
who are real active in terms of getting the connections down to the beaches.
Yeah, they're basically, that committee is 99.9% focused on constructing an extension to the town network
Yep.
out to the beach.
Out to the beaches. Yeah, we know. But anyway, she's going to be interested in that also, I think.
Okay, good point of contact. I presume she would be involved in the session on the 16th with the Cape Cod Commission.
One would assume.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to close that. Again, I think that meeting with the canal that the canal chamber is chairing is a really good opportunity to talk to these folks. Okay. The next and last item I have on the list is a point of contact for the bridge infrastructure. The one point I would point out is I just got a look at the schedule, and I did not attend the session, but apparently the DOT is not even going to hire a design contractor for the Sagamore Bridge until 2026.
Yeah.
So I think we can table this and pull this off the agenda for the time being.
Yeah.
I'm not sure some of us are even going to be active on this when we get around to 2026. So Jed, I think with permission, I think we can delete that from future agendas.
Okay. So here's the next agenda. All right, so for the 16th, I don't know if there's any detail on the digital equity plan proposal that we want to highlight.
I would just leave it there. Again, our meeting on the 16th, we will presumably have had some comment. I hope we have opportunities to make some comments verbally when this is presented to the select board on the 14th.
Oh, okay, so I'll just put a follow-up from.
I think we had our hand up and John had his hand up for something before
Hi,
we
John.
skipped over to.
John, did I cut you off?
Yes, I wasn't quite quick enough to get in on the subject of the canal bridges. I understand you've got a lot to do and you're pushing it back, and I think you did the right thing there. But I think to keep yourselves just instructed a little bit about what's going on, I would recommend that you attend the open house on May 13th. So listening to you talk about, I've forgotten the correct acronym, MBI, and your difficulties dealing with them, you can just repeat everything you said and put in Mass DOT instead of MBI for how Mass DOT is handling the bridges, verbatim, even down to talking to the state senators although it's the state senators who do good work and the federal people who seem to be clueless. But all of that aside, the open house is actually a chance where you'll be able to see what people are talking about, talk to the engineers and project managers directly, and get that kind of general sense of where are these people at? How far are we away from reality? How long is it going to take them to get there? So I would recommend anyone who wants that kind of background to stay focused on that. For example, the schedule you put up is interesting. When they refer to things happening in winter of any year, that's December of that year, which makes it look a year earlier than it actually is, because most people think of the winter as the one that has January in it. They play a lot of games like that, and it's good to get a little sense of what they're doing. But I understand that's kind of a sideshow for you. I think it's a sideshow for all of us, unfortunately. But it's just keep personally paying attention to it. I would recommend, and that's just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you, John. John, just could you remind everybody exactly what the venue and time for that meeting on the 13th is?
Yes, so the 13th is an open house at the Bourne Community Building. They actually do it in the gym. They have stations set up all around the gym. They've got probably 40 people there from the program who you can talk to, everything from the PR types who are questionable right down to the lead engineer on every part of the project.
This is the Army Corps we're talking about, or?
It's the
DOT.
Army Corps and Mass DOT and Federal Highway. They will all be there presenting. They're all participants in the project. So so it's on May 13th. It's
What
two
time?
sessions. There's two sessions, I believe. One is noon to 3 p.m. and the other is 5 to 8 p.m. Same people are there, and same availability at both halves of the session. It's not posted yet on the town's website, although I think they're working on getting it up there.
Yeah, that's only 10 days away, so what's the urgency?
Right. Okay, thank you very much, and you
Okay.
guys do great work.
Okay,
Well,
thank
thanks
you,
for coming.
John.
All right.
Thank you very much.
So these are the funding opportunity items that I had here.
Yeah.
That cover next time. All right. Do we want to keep these two?
Yes,
All
I would drop survey ideas for the time being. I don't think
Okay.
we need to do that.
And then, all right, and then we've got the select board presentation on the 4th. There should be some technology council stuff we can talk about.
You might, I would also put in, there likely will be a meeting that I can report on from the Broadband Coalition.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have to spend a lot of time talking on the challenge for next meeting.
Would
and
that be
hopefully
under
get more
the,
detail.
where would that be? Up
That'd be
here?
up above, it's there. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
We've
And
got it
then
covered.
and then we have this session here, right? I added that.
yeah, the report back on that. Okay,
And then also the report back on the May 16th workshop.
Okay, that's the,
it's under digital equity plan.
I'll put that up here. Okay. How's that? Put it here?
Report on digital equity implementation workshop.
Okay. And you're okay with it up here on this section?
Yeah, that's where I would even remove the word proposal from the title for that. Digital
Okay,
equity
that's a good
plan.
point. Yeah.
Digital equity plan and implementation.
Well, that's what the I is for in DEI.
I would suggest not using the acronym DEI. I mentioned that to somebody and they said, what does diversity have to do with broadband? And I said, well, it's digital equity. And then so they said,
Yeah.
well, DEI is traditionally, so
Diversity, yeah, inclusion, yeah.
equity and inclusion. So
So I'll just point out that this meeting is happening after our meeting,
yes,
so there'll be no reporting back.
there won't be reporting. Well, like, again, yeah.
That's right.
Well,
That's
there is
right.
that.
Not for this meeting, but for the next.
Well, you know
You're
what?
right.
Just leave it there. I'll just leave it there to remind us it's happening.
Not only that, we may, based on what we If you're meeting later in the day, we may have some feedback that we haven't, weren't able to provide to the select board that we may want to feed through you, Anne Marie, to attend that meeting.
Correct. Yeah,
There you
I
go.
would leave it there.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. All right, anything
Any
else for
other,
the agenda?
any other inclusions in the agenda? The working agenda? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion
moved.
we adjourn.
Jed and Wendy, okay, thank you. All in favor of adjourning?
I.
Okay, goodbye, and thank you to John York and David Eisenberg for sitting in. Your opinions are always very valued. Thank you.
Yeah,
All right, see y'all
Okay.
later.
thanks. Bye all.
Bye-bye.